Hey everyone, I'm Richard, following up today on the Xbox One S GPU overclock story. Okay, so a few days back I cherry-picked a bunch of games where I expected, and indeed hoped, to see some improvements based on the fact that the new console has a 7.1% boost to GPU power and ESRAM bandwidth. Got some pretty decent results actually, anything up to an 11% boost in Project Cars performance, 6 to 8% in Hitman, plus less tearing and improved frame rates in Batman Arkham Knight and Rise of the Tomb Raider. Good stuff then, and I ended by throwing it out to you lot. What games would you like to see retested on the Xbox One S? Well, we had a big bunch of requests for games using dynamic resolution, like Halo 5, The Division, and Doom 2016. So yeah, pixel counting, this takes some time. Now in theory, the S could indeed sustain the same performance as the old Xbox One, but with higher pixel counts. And we'll follow up on that when time allows, as there's a lot of manual measurements involved. Right now, let's get on with more GPU testing, and we'll begin with a title suggested by Aleph321 and Samir547, the Final Fantasy XV Platinum demo. This features both dynamic resolution and real issues hitting its target 30 frames per second. So let's dip in and see what we can see. Well, the bottom line is that the equivalent to a PC graphics card factory overclock is only ever going to take you so far, especially on a game that has a really low frame rate to begin with. So yeah, we're looking at 2 to 3 frames per second improvements here in the most taxing scenes. Obviously though, it's still far from a 30 FPS lock, but in areas where we are slightly off target, the One S's small GPU boost can get us to the target. Interesting results then, and this is pretty much in line with what I was expecting going in here. So yeah, back in the day we had plenty of concerns about the performance level of this one, though the E3 demo we saw recently looked like a huge improvement, much closer to the target 30 frames per second, so we're really going to look forward to covering the final game there. Next up, a huge deluge of requests for The Witcher 3 from Tom Mitchell, Modi, Matthew Wester, Shadow Sides, and many more, including a user operating under the hacker alias Smacker Chicken. Okay, so we'll kick off with a run around Novigrad City, and you'll see, yes, no real difference whatsoever. So now we have two Xboxes with different GPUs, so it makes it a fair bit easier to spot CPU bottlenecks. And streaming in an open world really does take a hit on the processor. So yeah, let's remember here that the Xbox One S has no CPU improvement over the original model whatsoever. Now, an interesting request here from White Wolf 496, who wants to see Crookback Bog. Yeah, I was kind of curious to see that one myself. Lots of alpha effects, so yeah, you'd hope that the GPU and ESRAM boost would make a real difference here. But unfortunately it doesn't really. A 1 frame per second boost isn't going to represent any kind of game-changing experience really. But then again, we kind of need to remember that Microsoft never really promised this. And it is a real shame that the CPU wasn't overclocked, because I reckon it could have made a bigger difference than the GPU bump. So yeah, we had a lot of requests to test Just Cause 3 from the likes of Tristan Leonard, Jeremy Coleman, Boo Bubby, Jeremy Sutherland, and my personal favourite, Masters of Your Mouth. This is a bit of a difficult one because the action is so dynamic, making like-for-like comparisons really difficult, and I get the idea that there's a lot going on behind the scenes in terms of online access and whatnot. But here's what we've got. Basically, almost entirely like-for-like, no real difference at all. Really stress the game, and it's safe to say that it's all pretty miserable whichever console you have. We only get fleeting moments here of Xbox One S superiority, but we're going to put that down to the lack of exact like-for-like footage. In short, no help here. The game really needs a lot of work. Okay, so let's move on to Dark Souls 3, as suggested by Jeremy Rittenhouse, Everett818, Alberto Di Castro, and Ahmed Almari, amongst many others. So this intro sequence gives us a like-for-like match, good for testing. Now the thing is, it does run at a locked 30 FPS on PS4, but here, well, there is an improvement, but it's literally like 1 frame per second. That's it. Now, it is worth bearing in mind that a 7% GPU boost will only go so far, and the lower the base frame rate, the lower the increase in actual FPS will be. Batman Arkham Knight, Rise of the Tomb Raider, well, reduced tearing and a 1 to 2 FPS boost. It's all about a touch of extra polish really, so that's what you get there. But in the case of Dark Souls 3 in these clips, it's just too far off the target frame rate to really make that much of a difference. Next up, a very quick test for Homefront the Revolution as suggested by our good friend Habba Bacon. As you can see here, there's not much going on here. It's pretty much like for like, suggesting that the primary bottleneck is indeed CPU in nature. Now, we do see very fleeting Xbox One S improvements, but really it's no big deal. Funnily enough, we were contacted by Dambuster Studios following our recent patch analysis, which did show some improvements over the previous version, and we're told that we should expect more frame rate boosts in a 2.0 patch coming this month. So yeah, we shall indeed check that out and report back. Anyway, that's all we've got time for right now. If we can find the time, we'll look into the dynamic resolution scaling issue on Xbox One. But in the meantime, thanks for your suggestions. Like and subscribe to support our work, and I'll catch you next time.